Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Dorotea, I'm designer behind Crochet Patterns, and today I'm going to show you how to crochet this lovely baby sweater. This is crochet, it's not knit. It is super stretchy, especially around the neck, and it has three little decorations, so embroidery trees around the yoke area. This crochet pattern is made from the top down, so we are going to start with the ribbing around the neck area, then we are going to continue with the yoke, the body, and after that we are going to make the sleeves. We are going to start with the materials first, and then I'm going to show you how to make this crochet sweater step by step. You can find the written instructions on my blog, Crochet Patterns, and you can get the PDF instructions with one additional size. So this is the size for 0 to 6 months, and if you want one additional size or just to support my work, then you can get a PDF pattern which is available in my Ravelry shop or on my Etsy shop, and I will leave all the links down in the description box of this video. Let's start with the yarn. You are going to need yarn, of course. This sweater was originally made with Flora Drops yarn. This is wool yarn, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I am going to use 100% cotton yarn. You are going to see that the final result, so the final project, is not going to look the same made from Flora and made from cotton. That's why I highly recommend using wool yarn. If your baby is not allergic to wool, of course. If it is, then I recommend cotton instead, but my first choice for this project is wool yarn. That's why I would recommend Drops Flora. It's super soft, it's available in many colors, and I love this yarn. So I recommend it, but you can actually use any fingering weight yarn from your yarn stash. That would be perfectly fine. So that is about yarn. So the next thing is a crochet hook. I'm going to use 2 crochet hooks in different sizes. One is 3mm crochet hook and one is 3.5mm crochet hook. 3mm crochet hook is for the ribbing, so the smaller one, and for the rest is 3.5mm crochet hook. In addition to that, you are going to need scissors, a tapestry needle, and of course stitch markers, which are optionals, but I highly recommend using them because they will keep your stitches safe. Alright, so we are going to start with the ribbing around the neck area. We are going to use 3mm crochet hook and yarn. Like I mentioned, I'm going to use cotton yarn, but I recommend wool yarn. I'm going to use cotton just because it is easier to see the stitches on the tutorial, but otherwise I prefer wool. So let's start with the foundation chain. We are going to start with the knot, cross the yarn, pull the loop through, and create your first loop. Insert the hook into the loop, pull both ends to tighten the loop, and create 7 chains. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So those chains have to be very tight because this is a ribbing and the ribbing is meant to be very tight. The chain has 2 sides, one side with 2 loops and one side with just 1 loop, and I'm going to use the side with just 1 loop. You can use the side with 2 loops, that's perfectly fine, but I prefer this side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip the first loop, so this one here, and I'm going to start with the second one. And we are going to work 1 single crochet stitch into each chain. Insert the hook, pull the yarn through. You have 2 loops on your crochet hook, pull the yarn through again, and that is your first single crochet stitch. And we are going to continue with single crochet stitches, working into chains is always a bit challenging, but it's also super fast because you don't work into chains that often. so it's not that you're going to struggle with it the whole pattern. Alright, that is your first row, and what we are going to do now is we are going to chain 1, turn our work, so the first row, and then we are going to use just back loops, and we are going to insert our hook into the middle here, pull the loop through, pull the loop through, and that is your first single crochet stitch made into the back loops. Let's repeat that. One more. Okay, so those are your first 2 rows, and now we are going to continue with the row 3. Again, chain 1 and create your first single crochet into the first stitch of the row, and then continue with your stitches made into back loops. Now continue working on your rows all the way to row 60. So you are going to need 60 rows of single crochet stitches in total, including this first one. And after you have that, come back and I will show you how to join the ribbing and how to continue with the yoke. This is our ribbing now. As you can see, it is a little bit stretchy, but it would be way stretchier if you would use wool yarns. Alright, so what we are going to do now is we are going to join both ends of the ribbing together. And here is a trick. The easiest way to join them is that this part here with the active yarn end is closer to you, and this one is on the back. And what we are going to do now is we are going to chain 1, and then we are going to join both ends. We are going to skip this chain, and we are going to use back loops on both ends. So insert here and insert here, and grab the yarn and pull the yarn through first 2, and then pull the yarn through the last one. All right, again, next stitch, the middle, grab the loop on the back and grab the loop on the back, pull the yarn through all 3. All right, again, insert the hook, and pull through. Continue all the way to the end of the row or the end of the ribbing. Okay, this is our last one. Okay, and this is the ribbing. What we are going to do now is we are going to switch the hook from 3mm to 3.5. This is this one, and we are going to start working on the yoke. Now, what we would usually do is we would turn our ribbing so that this part here, so this seam, would be on the inner side. But we are not going to do that because this whole sweater is made wrong side out. So this is the so-called right side of the stitches, and this is so-called wrong side of the stitches, and I preferred this one for this project, so that's why this seam, that's why I'm going to keep the seam on the other side for now. Let's start. We are going to start with chain 1, and after that we are going to work 1 stitch into each of the first 5 rows, and then we are going to increase and work 2 stitches into the same stitch. And for the yoke we are going to use half double crochet stitches. So yarn over, insert the hook into the first row, you can see here, grab the yarn, grab the yarn again, and that is your first half double crochet stitch. And from here on I'm going to use my stitch markers just to make sure I have all the stitches and the stitch count is correct. I'm going to continue, yarn over, insert the hook into the stitch, into the row actually, grab the yarn on the other side, pull it through, grab the yarn, pull it through. That is your stitch number 2. Continue. So that's 3, 4, and then we have stitch number 5. All right, what we are going to do next is we are going to work 2 half double crochet stitches into the same row. So 1 and 2. You can see I used the same row for 2 stitches, and that is our decrease in the pattern. What you're going to do now is you're going to continue repeating 5 half double crochet stitches and then decrease where you work 2 half double crochet stitches into the same stitch, or in our case row, all the way to the end of the round, because we are now working in rounds. And once you have that, I'm going to show you how to close the round, so how to join the round with a slip stitch. This is what we have so far. This is our first round, and now we are going to join our round with a slip stitch. So let me show you how to do that. It's very simple. This is our first stitch of the row. You are going to insert the hook into the stitch, pull the yarn through. You have 2 loops on your crochet hook and pull the yarn through again. So that is what you have so far. And the next row is going to be, or next round is going to be very easy, because we are going to start with chain 1. We are going to start in the very first stitch of the row. We are not going to turn the rows or rounds, and we are going to start with the half double crochet stitch made into the first stitch under, like this, so into the first stitch of the row below. And now we are going to work 1 half double crochet stitch into each of the next 70 stitches, and after you have that, you are going to join the row with a slip stitch and create a round out of that. So that is your round 2, and then I'm going to show you what to do next. That is what we have so far. First and the second round of half double crochet stitches. The first round is with increases, and the second round is just simple round made of half double crochet stitches. Now what we are going to do now is we are going to continue repeating 1 round of increases and 1 round of simple half double crochet stitches. But because with every round of increases you get 10 additional stitches, we are going to work like this. So the first round was 5 half double crochet stitches, then increase with 2 half double crochet stitches made into the same stitch. Because of that, our second round of increases is going to be 6 half double crochet stitches, increase, 6 double crochet stitches, increase, and so on. The next one is going to be 7 stitches, 1 increase, 7 stitches, 1 increase, and so on. And after that, 8 stitches, 1 increase, 8 stitches, 1 increase, and so on. 9, 10, and then 11. So in between you are always going to make 1 simple round of half double crochet stitches. And on top of that, once you have all 14 rounds, so 1 round of increases, 1 round of simple stitches, 1 round of increases, 1 round of simple stitches, all 14 rounds, you are going to create round 15, and that round is going to be made of simple half double crochet stitches. Once you have that, come back and I will show you how to create the body part. We are going to divide this yoke into 4 different parts. So this is the back, this is the front part of the sweater, and here are the sleeves. So what we are going to do now is, because we want this seam to be in the middle of the back, side of the romper, we are going to continue, and that's why we are going to divide the back part into two parts. Now I'm going to show you how to make first two rounds of the body part, and after that you're going to continue just working in rounds and finish all the way down to the ribbing part. This next step, so this next round, is definitely the part where I recommend these stitch markers. If you don't have plastic ones as I have here, just use a small amount of yarn and just mark those stitches, because it is going to be so much easier once you knit those specific stitches. So we are going to start with one half double crochet stitch into each of the next 19 stitches, and I'm going to start in the very first stitch here. I'm going to use the stitch marker and work 1, 2, all the way up to 19. And 19. Okay, so what we are going to do now is we are going to use stitch marker and mark this last used stitch here. And now we are going to skip 28 stitches. We are going to count 28 unworked stitches, undone stitches. So we have 28 stitches here, and we are going to place the marker into the next one and use that next one for the front part of the sweater. So this is our sleeve. This part here is the sleeve, and we are going to yarn over and start in the stitch marked with the stitch marker. The important step here is to leave the stitch markers in, because we will need those stitches later. And continue. Now we are going to work one half double crochet into each of next 36 stitches. With this one, 37. So 37 in total, but we have to create 36 more. We have 37 stitches here in total. And what we are going to do now is we are going to use the stitch marker, marked our last stitch, used stitch, and now we are going to count 28 stitches again, like we did for the first sleeve. Okay, and we are going to mark stitch 29, okay, because that is the first stitch we are going to use, and in between those two stitch markers we have 28 stitches in total. All right, let's continue with half double crochet stitches, and we are going to work half double crochet stitches from this stitch marker all the way to this stitch marker, which will complete our round for now. Okay. And from here to here it has to be 18 half double crochet stitches. Okay, so here we are. This is slip stitch from the row below, and that is our first stitch of this row, and that is the last stitch of this row. What I am doing here, and I haven't mentioned that before, is that I am starting one round into very first stitch of the round, and then I skip slip stitch at the end, and then what I would do in the next round is I would skip the first stitch, start with the second stitch, and I would finish in the slip stitch. That is a nice way how to actually hide the seam on the back a little bit. You cannot hide it completely, but it's quite okay. And if you compare it with this sweater, you can't really see it that much. You can see it a little bit more here with the cotton yarn, but it's still very good. So what we are going to do now is we're going to finish this round actually, and we are going to start with the next one. So chain 1, and as I mentioned, I'm going to start this round in the second stitch and I'm going to finish in the slip stitch here, because the previous one I started in the first stitch and I skipped the slip stitch. But you can always start in the first stitch of the round and then skip the slip stitch. That would be a more official way, but I found out that this is the way that helps me hide the seam on the back a little bit. So alright, so let's start with half double crochet stitches and let's work 1 half double crochet stitch all the way around, 1 half double crochet into each of the next 74 stitches. So when you come across this part, just work 1 half double crochet stitch into each stitch from the row below. You can see one is here, then we have one here, one is here, one is here, and now you can see you can just go and crochet all the way around. Okay, so here we have our first 2 rounds of the body part, and this first round was dividing the sweater into 4 pieces, so the sleeves and the front and the back part of the sweater, and then we've added 1 additional round of simple half double crochet stitches all the way around. And what we are going to do now is we are going to repeat this round a couple of more times. So this first round that was dividing the sweater in 4 parts is our round 1, and this second one is going to be round 2, and you are going to continue adding rounds all the way to round 14. And once you have all 14 rounds on the body part, I am going to show you how to create the ribbing. Okay, so this is where we are right now. We have our yoke here, so the ribbing here, the yoke here, and this is the body. What we are going to do now, we are going to create a line here of ribbings, same as here, just that this one was made in rows like this, and we are going to create this one here directly on the sweater. So again, we are going to work in rows, but we are going to attach the ribbing as we go. You are going to need your 3mm crochet hook, and we are going to start with the ribbing. So the ribbing here is going to be 5 stitches. This one here is 6 stitches, but this one here is going to be 1 stitch less. So we are going to create 6 chains, start in the second chain from the hook, and then we are going to start creating the ribbing going up and down. I cannot tell you how big the ribbing will be because it really depends on the gauge, because sometimes you are going to use 2 stitches to attach the ribbing, so for the row up and down, and sometimes just 1. It depends how many rows you have or how your gauge looks like. And of course, when you will see that you have too many rows together, then you are going to start using 2 stitches here to attach the ribbing. And when you will see that your sweater is too tight, then you are just going to use 1. And like I mentioned, it is very hard to say how many stitches you have to make, but you will see as you go. This is probably the hardest part of the sweater because you have to improvise a little bit, but it's not that hard. So We are going to start with 6 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And what we are going to do now is we are going to turn our work, make sure the chains and the stitches are tight, and that you are working with 3mm crochet hook. Turn and skip this first one here and work your first single crochet stitch, not half double crochet stitches anymore, but single crochet stitches, same as on the ribbing around the neck area. And this part can be a little bit hard, especially here with the cotton. So this is our first stitch, second, and all of them are made into back bumps. Third, fourth, and this is the last one, stitch number 5. Alright, so what we are going to do now is, you can see the stitches here. Those are the stitches from the last round on the body. And you are going to connect this ribbing with 1 slip stitch, or you can connect with 2 slip stitches and then go back. I'm going to start with 1 slip stitch and go back. You always have to skip those slip stitches. So for example, if you create 2 slip stitches, then you are going to skip 2 stitches at the beginning of the row. And if you create just 1, as you can see here, then skip just 1. You always have to have 5 single crochet stitches in each row. So I'm going to start with attaching my row, so my ribbing here, with just 1 slip stitch. So I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to skip this first slip stitch, and I'm going to work into back loops only, same as on the ribbing around the neck area, to create the ribbing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is our last one. And this is what we have so far. Now what we are going to do is we are going to chain 1 and make sure those chains here on the top are very tight. So now turn your work and work 1 single crochet into each of next 5. So skip this first chain and work into back loops again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and this one is hidden here. And this one here is the stitch number 5. So we have 5 of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I'm going to show you how to create 2 slip stitches. So this stitch here is already used for the ribbing, and now we have these 2, 1 and 2. So we are going to slip stitch the first one, slip stitch the next one, and if you're not sure which stitches are used and which stitches are not, I encourage you to use stitch marker. So this one is first one that is not used yet. Now we are going to turn our work, skip 1, 2, because those first 2 are slip stitches, and we are going to continue in the stitch number 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, and stitch number 5. And as you can see here, we are slowly starting to build our ribbing. And you are going to continue doing that all the way around. And once you have that, stop here, come back to the video, and I will show you how to join the ribbing, so both ends of the ribbing together, and then we are going to continue with the sleeves. Alright, so this is my last row on the ribbing. And since I did not say how many rows you actually need, because it really depends on the gauge and how you like your ribbing, you might finish here on the top or here at the bottom. It really depends, but it doesn't matter where you finish. What I would recommend here is finishing with the needle. You can create a round or a row of slip stitches, same as here on the top, but I personally prefer finish it with the needle. So I am going to cut the yarn. So this is the amount of yarn I'm going to use, and I am going to fasten off here, so like this. I'm going to secure my last stitch with chain and then pull the loop through, so pull the yarn through. I'm going to take the needle, and now I'm going to do the same thing as I did here on the top of the sweater. So I am going to use back loops only. So I'm going to go through this one, and then I'm going to find the back loop here on this side, and I'm going to pull through. I'm going to repeat that, do the same thing and I am going through the stitches twice every time. Alright, so here and here, once, twice, again, and the very last one. It's a little bit hard to see. Okay. And now, if you see that you have a hole here, you can just go ahead and use the needle and fix that hole. If not, that's perfect. So this is the ribbing that we have right now. I think it's nice and even, let's say stretchy enough. Like I said, it's not that stretchy because we are using cotton for this tutorial. This one is way stretchier. Oh, you see, it's totally different. And as you can see here, because we are using different yarn, we're using the same hook but different yarn, so the gauge is a little bit different, and you can see that this sweater is a tiny bit bigger than the original one. So if I put it like this, you can see that it's bigger because the gauge is not the same. The gauge is how many stitches and rows you produce, let's say in 2 by 2 inches or 5 by 5 centimeters square. You produce way less stitches here than here, and that's why is this sweater a little bit smaller, but it's way stretchier than this one here, as you can see, because the yarn is totally different. But you can pick whichever you prefer. Yeah, and you can see that the yoke here is so nice and even, and the stitches made with cotton yarn are easier to see, and that's why I'm using cotton for my tutorials. Even though I prefer wool for this pattern, I've decided to show you how the sweater is made with cotton yarn because it is easier to see the stitches. Simple as that. I'm going to finish and hide the yarn between the stitches. I'm going to fix this part here as well, so I'm going to hide those yarn ends too, and then we are going to continue with the sleeves. Now I'm going to show you how to create one sleeve, and the steps for the next sleeve, so the second sleeve, are exactly the same as for the sleeve number 1. We are going to use our 3.5mm crochet hook and the same yarn as we were using up till now. What we are going to do now is we are going to insert our crochet hook into one of the stitch markers, and we are going to work in rounds, which means that we are going to close each row with the slip stitch, the same as we did on the body and the yoke. Alright, so the sleeves are made with half double crochet stitches. So once again, I am going to insert the hook here into this stitch here that is marked with a slip stitch. That is the same stitch as we used for the body, because the body and the sleeve are going to share this stitch, so the stitch marked with the stitch marker. What we are going to do now is we are going to attach the yarn with chain 1 first, like this, and then we are going to start in the same stitch. Yarn over, insert the hook, pull the yarn through, pull the yarn through again, and that is our first half double crochet stitch. And we are going to continue working half double crochet stitches all the way around, and we are going to stop here in this stitch marker. Alright, so here we are at the end of our row, so row for now, at the end of our round. So insert the hook into the very last stitch. We're going to take the stitch marker out. We can take this one out as well. And we are going to join the round here. So if you want, you can also create one stitch here, one stitch here, and one stitch here. That will mean that you will get 3 additional stitches. In case this part here is not big enough, but I'm going to close the round here with a slip stitch made into the very first stitch of the round, because I think this part here is wide enough, and I am going to continue with my next round. And once I finish the whole sweater, I'm going to go back and I am going to hide this hole under the armpit. So let's start with round number 2. So chain 1, do not turn your rounds, just continue working in rounds in one way, and start in the first stitch. I'm going to use my stitch markers to mark the first stitch of the round, and I am going to continue working in rounds. Now, this was our first round. We are now working on our second round, and you are going to need 11 rounds in total, or as many as you want. So if you want longer sleeves, add additional rounds, but keep in mind that we are going to add ribbing at the end of the sleeve. So this is how the sleeve after 11 stitches looks like, and what we are going to do now is we are going to repeat the steps we've done for the ribbing around the waist area, so at the bottom of the sweater, and we are going to do the exactly same thing here on the sleeves. We are going to take our 3.0 millimeter crochet hook, and we are going to create a chain made of 6 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, come on, 4, 5, and 6. And we are going to skip the first stitch right here, so the first chain, and we are going to work into back bumps and create 1 single crochet stitch into each of the next 5 stitches. One, two, three, 4, one more, and this is number 5. Alright, so this is what we have so far, and now we are going to attach this chain to the sleeve. So this first row to the sleeve with a slip stitch, and you are going to do the exactly same thing as you did here. And once you are done, so once you finish your rows of single crochet stitches made into back loops only, you are going to join both ends of the ribbing the same as we did here. You can do that with a row of slip stitches, same as here, or you can take the tapestry needle and join both ends of the ribbing that way, but make sure you are working into back loops only, because that will give you this ribbed look, and the ribbing, so the seam on the ribbing won't be so visible. I'm going to finish my sleeve, finish sleeve number 2, and then I'm going to show you the finished result. So this is how the sleeves look like right now when they are finished, and this is the sweater. As you can see, the yoke is nice and even, and yeah, it's super cute. Alright, that would be all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for keeping me company. If you decide to make your own sweater using this pattern, then make sure you tag me on Instagram. I always love to see your creations using my patterns. It really means a lot when you do that. It inspires me to create new patterns. Yeah, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!